Good evening, welcome to North Lanarkshire Live. I'm your host, Martin, and as you can see from the colour of my face, I have been out in the lovely Scottish sunshine all week until it decided to turn on us and become torrential downpour here in North Lanarkshire. Over the last couple of weeks, and in fact the last couple of months, we've had a lot of politicians on the show chatting about their policies and things on the lead up to Holyrood, and as would happen, as elections fade away, so do the politicians. So we're back to talking to not any lesser, but just as equally as important is the community groups, the people that work tirelessly throughout the year, helping people in the community, helping our community to be a better place. And tonight is no different, as we have Airdrie Foodbank on. Hello.
Hi Martin, how you doing?
I am doing fine. I've just put up your name underneath there. So it's David Findlay, and your title is Project Manager. What is that?
It's a grand title, isn't it? But really, I just kind of make sure that everything sort of operates properly. Like most organisations now, we have sort of compliance things to deal with. So I just sort of make sure that all the right people are in the right places, if that makes sense, and just that the whole operation works smoothly. So yeah, it's just kind of overseeing everything, but really big gratitude to all the volunteers that kind of make it all happen, and I just kind of try and keep them all together and make it all happen as well. So that's basically my role in the food bank.
Now we're coming out of the lockdown, as it were, and we're coming out at the end of this whole pandemic thing. How we spoke to you last year at the start of the lockdown. How have you got through the lockdown? What's been the problems that you faced getting through the lockdown, and what are you going to do on the way out of it?
The problems, I guess, were there weren't too many problems. I guess our biggest challenge, I guess, was the isolation of many of our volunteers. Many of our volunteers that operate on the kind of daily distribution side, so our distribution points at the churches in Airdrie on a Wednesday and a Friday. Normally, the normal service would be that a client would come in, they'd be greeted by a volunteer who would sit, have a chat, a cup of tea, maybe some soup, and just a bit of general chit chat just to see how that person's getting on. Maybe talk about some of the crisis that they're in, and maybe we can lend a wee bit of experience to that person's situation. But obviously, the minute COVID struck and lockdown struck, a lot of these volunteers who unfortunately were over 70 had to then isolate, and we couldn't have that same interaction with our clients. So it was a very basic service. So it was basically just handing out food parcels at a door, in a doorway, and getting, making sure that people were getting fed every week. So we soon adapted into that kind of model. We then got a lot of help through the Trussell Trust and with British Gas engineers who couldn't obviously visit people's houses to fix boilers and things. So we had about 8 or 9 engineers deployed to Airdrie, and we were able to make home deliveries because they had their little vans that could then take food parcels round. So we coped really, really well, and despite down to sort of 2 and 3 volunteers, and we did remarkably well. It was a challenge, but I was kind of thinking earlier, the food bank's been in the go for 6 years, and I don't think there's been one year has mirrored the other. We've either changed location, we've had to move out a warehouse, we've had to find more storage space or whatever. So I think most of the volunteers are used to that dynamic change that comes our way, and also they're very aware that the main sole purpose, if you like, is to make sure that our local community that are hungry, those that are hungry are fed. So they kind of just rise to that challenge and make sure that people are looked after.
Do you not feel though, as you say, you've been going for 6 years, and basically food banks now are an inherent part of society, and it's a normal part of society, and that's a terrifying thought that a food bank just exists, and people don't question that there's a food bank in Airdrie, there's a food bank in Cumbernauld, there's one in Coatbridge, there's one in Motherwell. People just assume that there is a food bank in the area because everywhere's got food banks now. Do you not think that's a terrifying thing, that when you think about it as a part of our society, that a food bank is a normal amenity within society?
It is very much so, and one of the things that Trussell Trust is sort of campaigning and for is to end the need for food banks, which I guess in some respect some people would see that as being a bit weird, that the Trussell Trust is there to provide food banks, but essentially the people at the Trussell Trust, the kind of trustees, they want to put themselves out of business. That's their ultimate aim, is to end poverty. All we are doing at the moment, we're the bridge between getting people food, but ultimately our goal, if you like, is to end local food poverty and end the need for food banks. Now, people will probably laugh at that and say, never in a million years will that happen. But we've got to have that aspiration and try and work with politicians, local councils, and everybody else, stakeholders that are involved, to say, right, how do we end the need for food banks? And I guess we don't have the answer. We're just there to sort of try and pick up the pieces, but we are trying to feed into, local MSP, council, citizen advice to try and see how we can eradicate it.
I think there is this thing of, though, it's become so part of society, and if there was a political will to do it, it would be done. The same way, if we look at the start of lockdown, where homeless people were seen as being super carriers and super spreaders, and suddenly homeless people were put into housing. Now we're coming out of lockdown, I'm pretty sure you're going to see all these people that have been put into housing are going to get shifted straight back out and back on the street again. So it has to be. Does it have to be that we get to a breaking point where food banks can't actually supply to people? That you can't, somebody says, well, actually this is insane, that we're a first world country and the poverty gap is getting such that working people, because it's not, everyone now knows that it's not just people that are unemployed and can't make their benefits stretch. It's actually people that are employed, working full-time jobs, that can't afford to feed themselves.
That's right. There's people working and something might go wrong in the house, the wash machine breaks, and there's no savings. People are living right on the edge. They're just, making enough. Wages are not been increasing very well over the last few years. So, people are out trying their best, 0 hour contracts, temporary contracts, all that kind of stuff. So you're right. If there was a will by politicians, then, they would kind of look to end these kind of things, to try and give people, increase the minimum wage, that sort of thing, try and increase benefits, try and, change the benefit system. And I know that in Scotland that's now devolved, and I think, if I read properly, our local MSP, Neil Gray, is now the convener of the sort of social,
social justice. Yeah.
Social justice, that's it. Yeah, thank you. So, we've had conversations with Neil over the years, and, it's something that, be keen to catch up with him soon and just see, and what his points are and views are in terms of food bank usage and what can be done.
Yeah, because, as we come out of the pandemic, I think everyone with any sense is seeing that there's going to be an economic downturn. The government gives us, it is our money, but the government doesn't give away money without taking it back somewhere down the line. So this year and a half of furlough and support for businesses is going to be hiked up with taxes, and then there's going to be other cuts at other places, and people are losing their jobs anyway, in terms of lots of companies going under as a result of the actual lockdown. So you guys are probably going to see a massive influx into people actually turning up on the doorsteps of the food bank. Do you not think?
Yeah, absolutely. And we see these cycles, with universal credit debacle about 3 or 4 years ago. And, we're going to go over that situation where people were getting sanctioned and all that kind of stuff. Well, that seems to have kind of alleviated. But now we've got this pandemic aftermath, if you like, coming our way. And yeah, certainly people, will be suffering through unemployment, health maybe. There may be some long term COVID implications with people who can't work and just can't, sustain on the current sort of benefits. So so I think there's definitely going to be some fallout from the past year and a half.
Now, we talked a little bit before the show started about the fact is that, well, when people hear food bank, they think, what do? You go along and you get some food and then you're out the door again. And you said there was a level to that during lockdown because of restrictions on what you could do and things like that. But what sort of, if I was, because obviously I'm self-employed, so I could, I mean, I am in the part of the gig economy, so I could quite easily end up needing to go to a food bank at some point. It's very easy for it to happen to anyone. How would I get how could I get along to Airdrie Foodbank? Do I just walk in and say, look, I'm a bit down on my luck, or is there a process?
There is a formal process. However, we know that the process that we've got is probably one of the things that we're looking at over the next sort of 6 months is how to streamline that process, because COVID, like probably many organisations, has taught us a lot of good things as well about how we operate and how we manage to operate, and there's some improvements that we can make. But the formal process, if you like, is that you would approach us with a referral. So your kind of first port of call would either be Citizens Advice, the Scottish Welfare Fund, social work. So a sort of professional body, if you like, would make a call on your situation and provide you with a referral form. You would bring that to the distribution point on the closest day after you got the referral. And at the moment, under the COVID restrictions, it would be basically an exchange. So you'd hand over the form and you would get a food parcel for a number of people to be fed. Hopefully in August, provided all the restrictions are lifted and we can get some people back into the church halls, we would have a COVID-safe table with screens, and we would get back to our volunteer sitting speaking to you about your crisis and just a general, very informal chat. And we found that quite helpful for our clients, because it's a very impartial chat. It's more about the person, and we actually glean quite a lot of information from that person. So we can understand maybe some health concerns, and our volunteers can maybe suggest some ideas about what that person can maybe do. With no formal people, there's no council workers there, there's no citizen advice people there. It's a very impartial service, and a lot of people enjoy that sort of safe place to come and have a chat, even just open up about their particular situation. Maybe their family are, they're embarrassed about going to a food bank, their children are asking questions about why they go in there. They can just come and open up and share that. And I think a lot of our clients have missed that experience over the last 15, 16 months. So we would hope in August we'll get back to that kind of interaction and just share some time, and hopefully we can try and move people out of crisis. We're not welfare right officers, but we can at least try and point people in another direction, some shape or form. And the number of clients that we've helped get off this particular crisis. I remember one volunteer actually went with back in the days of sanctions. One of our clients missed their appointment and was basically no benefits for 6 weeks, and the guy was just not savvy with admin and letters and all the just day-to-day life.
The bureaucracy
yeah,
that
exactly.
you get caught up
absolutely.
in.
And one of our volunteers actually said, look, when's your appointment to go and discuss this? And it was like Wednesday at 10 o'clock, and she said, I'll come with you. And went and basically supported the guy and basically got the sanction lifted. So that's the kind of things we try to offer. It's not always just giving food parcel. Clearly that's the number one thing. But our volunteers get that connection with our clients and go go that extra mile and just try and help. Each case, every case is different, of course. There's some people with kids, and that's always a heartbreaking situation when there's parents coming in and really, 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 depressed about their situation. Their kids are suffering, and we'll do as much as we can to even signpost them onto other networks and other charities that might be, the Baby Bank, for example, or we know of other organisations that
Well,
may
I
have
know
toys
there's a school uniform bank as well. I don't know if there's one in. Yeah, so that's another one that we've met with them and discussed with them before. Now, there's famously a couple of years ago, David Ed Miliband brought up his donation for a food bank, and they showed in the press what he'd brought up, and it was a packet of Nairn's oat cakes and some fancy jam and a jar of pesto, which kind of ruined his socialist credentials a bit there. But what sort of things are you looking for when people want to donate? Because there's obviously people that will be watching this saying, well, God, that's terrible that somebody has to go to a food bank. I'll donate some food. What kind of stuff are you looking for donations?
Believe it or not, it's the bare essentials. So things that are non-perishable, pasta, soup, beans. Probably shouldn't mention those because not because of your bean thing, but we get everybody gives us soup and beans. We get absolutely overrun with soup and beans, like every other food bank in the country.
But do you not think that? Do you not think though that is because we discussed this earlier on, just to let people know. When I lived in Edinburgh, I was very low paid, and I basically lived on baked beans and toast for about 2 months because it was 3p a tin, and it was the healthiest thing I could eat. But it also kept. I could buy a big chunk of beans and stick them in the cupboard, and I knew I didn't have to worry about going shopping and things like that. And I think that's maybe why you get so many baked beans, because there's a lot of people of my age that went through that sort of thing where you had to live on baked beans. Well, baked beans keep, and they always do for when you're poor. So yeah, that's the one. So I think that's probably where it's coming from, because I would immediately go, baked beans, they'll not go wrong.
No, you're absolutely right, because they can go with anything. Same with soup. Soup's always handy in the cupboard for kids or adults, lunchtime, evening time, whenever. So we certainly get a lot of beans and soup, but things like pasta sauce, meat kind of things, trying things that with rice, things that with cereal, biscuits, all the kind of staples almost. Toiletries are quite good to have. Pet food even. We know some clients who would feed their pets before they'd feed themselves, a bit like your children. So pet food's always handy. And even sort of household sort of cleaning things, so fairy liquid, that type of washing up liquid and washing powder, So really the full kind of thing. But certainly food is the number one thing. That's what we are. We're a food bank, but it's nice to sort of give these kind of wee extras.
Now, I'm going to go into something that might seem a bit strange though, but is there provision, because obviously it's a food bank, so people are going there when they're desperate, but is there provision for people that maybe have dietary needs? So if someone's got Crohn's disease, or they've got ankylar spondylitis or something like that, and where they have to maybe have a gluten-free or a starch-free diet, is there sort of help that you can put them in the right direction? Or
it's a very good point. It's something that we've very rarely ever come across. I remember, I think it was a health visitor in Airdrie who had it was either a parent or a child had dietary issues, and the health visitor actually came and picked out the food herself. But it is a very good point, and it's something we've never really considered, if I'm being honest. And I guess the demand hasn't been there. We've never had a sort of celiac type client come to us. So, but that might just be because they feel that we can't offer anything. So that's quite an interesting concept. So I'll discuss that with the rest of the team and see if it's something that we could look at going forward.
Now the other thing is as well is because obviously we had that little discussion before. When I left home, and I went out and was living on my own and trying to survive on my own with food. Cooking has always been a big issue when you first leave home. I think most university students or college students or anyone that just leaves home to go and work somewhere else in the country struggles with how to cook food and what to do with food. And I was very lucky. My parents gave me a Reader's Digest encyclopedia of food, which didn't have any recipes in it, but it said, if you've got a raw chicken, here's how to carve it. Here's the bits that you can... So I was able to go into a shop and say, oh, there's a chicken for £1. I can buy that and I can cook it and I can have it for the whole week. Do you offer some sort of like education with what people can do with some of the food they get as well?
We did kind of way at the beginning. We looked at doing something. We actually tried to partner up with a few organisations about actually doing sort of classes at that home centre, which was the community centre next to the Sheriff Court, and just through the usual council kind of red tape, shall we say, things never really took off, which was a bit unfortunate. The one thing we did do was probably more another sort of practical sense was we had a sort of microwave kettle pack, so things like instant noodles that you just add boiling hot water, or things that you could microwave, more microwave friendly, so that people, because some clients were maybe moving house and typically didn't have an oven or a cooker, so we would try and make up packs to suit that type of setup, but it was just a microwave or a kettle, just to get that person over that particular period of time.
Well, I know. For where we moved into this house last year, and we didn't have gas or electricity for the first month because of a mix-up. So we were eating off a barbecue, is what we were. Wow. We were living off the barbecue. It was fantastic because it was summer, but obviously midwinter you wouldn't like to be going out to eat dinner. Want that. But I'll tell you what, though. I mean, if you want to talk about it, maybe off camera, we can maybe talk about maybe doing some YouTube videos with yourselves on how to cook, like what would be in a standard sort of pack and how to get the most out of it. Come up with some ideas and maybe give some ideas, and then it raises awareness of what actually foods you're looking for, as well as.
Yeah, that'd be really helpful. Yeah, I think that's definitely something we could look to develop.
And so we're coming out of lockdown. So is it changed now? Lockdown, the restrictions now we're down, or are we starting to ease out of it?
We're kind of easing out of it, and we're kind of looking at the future now. We've kind of been looking at the future probably for the last 3 months, really in earnest, as we see the restrictions ease, and we're now looking at putting a sort of a new team in place, and that's probably the wrong word, but we're looking to beef up our sort of setup in terms of the kind of day-to-day running of the food bank. Like everything else, we've come through this period and we've lost some volunteers just through the isolation thing. Decided they've decided enough's enough, and they wanted to try give it a rest, and and we've also looked at what we need to sustain ourselves going forward. So things like try to get some expertise in and to volunteer in terms of sort of fundraising and that kind of thing, and just to help us push forward. So we're looking at putting some co-opted trustees together. We've got a steering group which has kind of had to go on ice, but we're looking to sort of revamp that, bring some fresh blood into the group. But also there's some other sort of work and positions, volunteering positions available, just to strengthen the way we operate. And by August, September time, I'd like to think most of those positions will be filled, and we can get back to where we were nearly 2 years ago and have a kind of fully functional steering group that's driving the agenda and looking at the strategy and having conversations with politicians about where we are and where we're likely to be. So there's actually quite a lot to look forward to now. We've been in this kind of almost hibernation period of just feeding people very quickly and getting them, looking after people as best we can. But now we're now building for the next phase, if you like. Now hopefully that won't be for another 6 years, but we've got to think, we've got to be here for the next couple of years anyway. So we need to have the building blocks in place to allow us to continue that work. So, on the website we've got a list of volunteering opportunities, and hopefully if there's anyone out there who would like to be part of what we do, then please don't hesitate to get in touch. We'll be happy to speak to anybody that's just willing. They don't always need the experience. I think if someone's willing to come forward and help, then that's 99% of the we're over the hurdle, and we can sort of pick up from there. So yeah, it'd be good to see some new blood come and join us.
Well, I think as well, there's always that thing of helping out with charities as well, especially if you're just out of school or you're just out of university and you haven't quite got any work coming up. But it's always good just to do a bit of volunteering. It won't affect your benefits. It'll help you when you actually do go for a job, that you can say, I've done this and I've got experience in here, because experience counts for a lot in terms of like job propositions. So although you are helping the community, volunteering actually does benefit the volunteer a little bit as well. Just in general, because I did volunteer when I left college, and it did benefit me when I was applying for jobs later on. That people said, "Oh, what did you do there?" And
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got some I'll call them youngsters, but young folk that are doing sort of Duke of Edinburgh and Queen's badges for BBs and all that kind of thing. They come in on a Monday evening and help make up the food parcels, and they're interacting with older people, older volunteers, and just getting that life experience of working as a team, working different age groups, intergenerational, all that kind of stuff. Um, it's great what we can offer in terms of some of the other roles that we're looking for in terms of fundraising. Great exposure. Dealing with businesses, churches, schools. The full thing. Just trying to see if we can get food collections done and our financial donations. Again, just the exposure that we can give people, particularly young folk, to get that experience is, we've got a lot to offer.
yeah, I think there's also a benefit as well to make you a rounded, more rounded human being if you do some charitable work, because
Yeah.
if you come from a privileged background and you're going off to go do something and you work and you actually get to see a part of society that you might skip by as well. But more importantly, how do we donate, and how do we put food into the food bank?
So, a couple of ways to donate. We've because of COVID and what have you, we've really encouraged a sort of online financial donation. So again, on the website, there's on the homepage in the top right hand corner, there's a big red button. It says donate. If you click that, it takes you to our online giving page, and it's quite good. You can set up either a one-off payment or a regular payment. So we've got people who maybe give a financial donation every month as part of a sort of long-term commitment, which is fantastic. Um, or it can be a one-off donation. We can claim the gift aid back from that if the person's a taxpayer. In terms of donating food, it can either be any of our distribution points. So a Wednesday, it's in Edwards Church in Airdrie, or on a Friday. At the moment, we're operating out of Cairnlea Church, which is the old Flower Hill building. Both are 11 till 1 on a Wednesday and a Friday. Or on a Monday night, we've got a storage unit at Gatley Road, just across from Morrison's. There's a little unit, so the old Deborah charity shop. So we're in there as our kind of warehouse. So we're there usually between 6 and 7 on a Monday. If anyone shops at Tesco, we have a basket behind the checkout. So any food can be left in the Tesco basket. And there's also one at Tesco Coatbridge as well. So we've got a few locations. Or the online thing has worked quite well last year as well, because it's quick and easy and people don't have to worry about getting there. So either is more than acceptable.
Well, thanks for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. But we now come to the most important question. Who's going to win the Euros?
Well, certainly not Scotland. Well, up until last night, my money was in France, but really I didn't think France played particularly well. So I'm leaning now maybe towards Italy.
Yeah, that's a good
They've had
shout.
that.
Yeah.
I think they've had a good start. Maybe Belgium, but I think Italy. I wasn't too sure about Italy seen the first couple of games, and I thought, they look decent. So
I've got to say, when you're in doubt, just always say Germany.
well, again, I would have said Germany. I hope it is Germany because that means our friends south of the border are out then. So, but I think between Belgium and Italy, and if I was going with one, I would say I think Italy's just seems to be a bit slicker at the moment.
Right, well, that's it, and hopefully we'll speak to you very soon. Okay?
Okay, thanks again, Martin.
No problem. So it's David Findlay, project manager from Airdrie Foodbank, on our show tonight, and some great information there. Next week, our show falls on the 1st of July, which, if you've been watching the show over the past year, you might have heard me notice or mention a couple of times that I'm a dual citizen and I am actually Scottish and Canadian. And the 1st of July is Canada's Independence Day. And what Ailey has done is managed to arrange a chance to speak to the editor of Airdrie Today. And now Airdrie is out in Alberta in Canada, and they're going to broadcast to us, and they're going to tell us what's going on, because their COVID restrictions have been lifted and they are able to have a big Canada Day celebration. So hopefully you can join us next week for that. But until then, I will say good night and thanks for watching.